The shocking incident. It was an ordinary day on Earth. People went about their lives, unaware that the fate of the planet was about to change forever. The sun shone brightly over the busy cities, and in the quiet corners of the world, people sat in cafes, enjoying their lunch breaks, or strolled through parks with families. No one knew that something extraordinary was happening far above them. In the skies above Earth, a strange and powerful event was taking place. A massive ship, unlike any humans had ever seen before, emerged from the blackness of space. It was an enormous vessel, shaped like a sleek silver bullet, and it was heading straight for Earth. Its engines hummed with power, sending out strange pulses of energy that rattled the atmosphere. No one had ever seen anything like it. The ship did not belong to any nation on Earth, and it was not part of any space agency. It came from a place far beyond the stars, from a galactic empire that had long ruled over many planets. The Galactic Empire had always kept its distance, watching over Earth without revealing its presence. They had kept an eye on the human race for centuries, but had never interfered. That is, until now. As the massive ship entered Earth's orbit, people on the ground began to notice. At first, it seemed like a strange weather phenomenon, a disturbance in the sky that made people look up in curiosity. Soon, though, the truth became clear. The object wasn't just a cloud or weather balloon. It was a ship, and it was coming closer. In cities across the globe, people ran outside to witness the strange sight. Some tried to film it, while others took to social media to share what they were seeing. News outlets quickly began to report on the mysterious object, but no one knew where it had come from or what it wanted. The world was in a state of confusion, panic, and wonder. The ship didn't land, though. Instead, it hovered above Earth for hours, as if it was waiting. Its presence alone was enough to send shockwaves through the human race. What was it? Who was aboard? And why had it come? As time passed, the global leaders were called into action. World governments scrambled to organize meetings and figure out a plan. They sent their best scientists and military leaders to try and communicate with the ship, but all efforts failed. The ship remained silent, observing, but offering no explanation. No response came from the strange visitors. Then, without warning, the ship released a transmission, a message broadcast to every communication channel on Earth. It was a simple message, but one that carried great weight. The voice on the transmission was cold, robotic, and chilling in its delivery. Attention, Earth. This is the Galactic Empire. You have been warned. The message echoed around the globe, and for a moment, time seemed to stand still. The people of Earth could hardly believe what they had just heard. Who were these Galactic Empire people, and what did they mean by "you have been warned"? Across the world, questions swirled. Was this some kind of joke, a hoax, or was it something far more dangerous? The leaders of Earth gathered together to discuss the message, but no one had any answers. The scientists were baffled, and the military leaders were on high alert. They had never encountered anything like this before. No one had ever expected something like this to happen. While world leaders debated the meaning of the warning, something even more shocking occurred. The massive ship in the sky began to move, slowly at first, and then with increasing speed. It moved towards Earth's largest military bases and communication hubs. As it got closer, the strange energy pulses intensified. The air vibrated with a low hum, and everything felt off. Then, without any further warning, the ship released a series of powerful beams of energy that hit several key locations on Earth. Cities and military bases were hit first. Buildings crumbled, and a wave of destruction spread across the globe. People screamed in terror as they watched the beams of light streak through the sky and hit the ground. It was clear that the Galactic Empire had made its intentions known. This was not a friendly visit. This was a warning, and it was not one to be ignored. The Earth had no idea what they were up against. The human race, which had always thought itself to be the rulers of their world, now found themselves in the crosshairs of a much greater power. The destruction was unlike anything Earth had ever experienced. It wasn't just the physical damage. It was the shock to the human psyche. People had never felt so small, so powerless. The feeling of helplessness spread like wildfire. How could Earth fight back against something so powerful, something so vast? The Galactic Empire was clearly far more advanced than humanity had ever imagined. But despite the fear and confusion, there was something else stirring among the people of Earth, a spark of determination. Humans might not have understood what was happening or why it was happening, but one thing was clear: they were not going to give up without a fight. As the Galactic Empire's ship began to retreat back into the void of space, its mission was complete. The warning had been sent. The question remained: would Earth submit to the Empire, or would they rise up to defend their home? Hook. The Galactic Empire has sent its warning, and Earth is in shock. But humanity is not one to back down. What happens next will change everything. Humanity's first response. The devastation caused by the Galactic Empire's initial strike left the Earth in turmoil. Entire cities had been destroyed, military bases reduced to rubble, and global communication networks were severed. People were in shock, confused, and desperate for answers. How could this happen? Why was humanity suddenly the target of a galactic power? These were the questions on everyone's mind. As the dust settled, world leaders scrambled to respond. Emergency summits were held in every country, with the United Nations taking the lead. But the response was far from unified. Countries were torn between trying to negotiate with the Empire, seeking peace, and preparing for all-out war. No one knew how to deal with this alien threat. In the United States, the president and his closest advisors gathered in a secure bunker beneath the White House. The room was tense. Everyone had seen the damage the Galactic Empire could cause, and it was clear that Earth's military forces were no match for the advanced technology of their invaders. A general, his voice tight with fear, spoke up. "We cannot fight them with our conventional weapons. They've already shown us that. We need something more, something that can truly stand up to them." The president nodded, rubbing his temples. It was a terrifying thought. Humanity had always prided itself on its technological advancements, but compared to the Galactic Empire, they were nothing. It was clear they were outmatched. But surrender wasn't an option. Earth's leaders refused to accept that. "Then we'll have to get creative," the president said, his voice steely with resolve. "We'll find a way to strike back. No one invades Earth and gets away with it." As the world's leaders convened and debated their next steps, scientists and engineers around the world began to work feverishly on a new project. It was clear that Earth would need a weapon of unimaginable power if it was going to stand a chance against the Galactic Empire. The goal was simple: to find a way to match their advanced technology, to create a force capable of fighting back. In Russia, a team of scientists worked around the clock in underground laboratories. They pored over every bit of data they could find on the Empire's technology, studying the patterns of their attacks and the strange energy pulses they had emitted. One scientist, Dr. Ivan Petrov, was determined to find a way to turn Earth's technology against the invaders. "We're not just going to roll over," Dr. Petrov declared to his team. "We're going to make them regret ever messing with Earth. I know we can do this." Meanwhile, in China, a group of military leaders gathered to discuss their next move. They had already begun assembling their strongest troops, ready to launch counterattacks if necessary. But the fear among the officers was palpable. The Galactic Empire's ships were enormous, their weapons capable of destroying entire cities with a single strike. What could Earth possibly do to fight back? The global response was fragmented, but one thing was certain: humanity wasn't giving up. Earth's leaders knew that it wasn't just their own survival at stake. It was the survival of the entire human race. The world had to unite, or they would fall. But unity was easier said than done. Countries had been at odds for centuries, and the idea of global cooperation was still a new concept for many. In Africa, nations began to come together. There was a growing understanding that this was not a time for division, but a time to fight for their very existence. Leaders who had once been rivals now found themselves working side by side, pooling their resources to defend Earth from the galactic threat. This was no longer a fight between countries. It was a fight for humanity's future. Back in the United States, the president made a decisive speech that echoed across the world. "We may be a young species in the grand scheme of the galaxy, but we are not weak. We've survived wars, plagues, and natural disasters. And we've thrived. The Galactic Empire may think they can wipe us out, but they don't know who they're dealing with. Humanity will fight back, and we will win." The president's words were broadcast globally, sending a wave of hope through the people of Earth. The message was clear. Humanity would not go quietly into the night. The Galactic Empire had underestimated them, and they would pay the price. While governments and military leaders worked to organize Earth's defenses, something extraordinary happened. Around the world, ordinary citizens began to take action. From small villages to large cities, people started to organize in their own way. Some formed underground resistance groups. Others began to study the alien technology left behind after the attack, hoping to uncover its secrets. They knew that they had to be part of the solution. In Europe, a group of hackers found a way to access the Empire's encrypted communications, uncovering important information about the alien fleet's weaknesses. They shared their findings with military leaders, who quickly adapted their strategies. Small victories were achieved as human ingenuity began to turn the tide. Every small step forward felt like a giant leap for humanity. The world was coming together, and for the first time, Earth seemed united in a common cause. The Galactic Empire had made a grave mistake when they underestimated humanity's resilience and resourcefulness. But even as Earth's forces gathered strength, the threat of the Galactic Empire loomed large. Earth's leaders knew they had only one shot at survival. They had to make their move quickly, before the Empire returned with even more devastating force. And so, humanity's fight for survival had only just begun. The shocking incident that had brought the Galactic Empire to Earth was only the first chapter in a war that would change the course of history. Earth had been warned, but humanity was ready to prove that they were not as helpless as the invaders thought. The discovery of the secret weapon. The atmosphere on Earth was thick with anticipation. Every nation had begun to mobilize its resources. Governments, military forces, and civilians alike were working towards a singular goal: survival. But while people prepared, there was something deeper at play, a hidden hope that one unknown factor could turn the tide in humanity's favor. In underground research labs across the globe, teams of scientists worked tirelessly on a project so secretive that even world leaders knew little about it. But they all trusted the same person. The genius scientist, Dr. Elena Vargas. She had come from humble beginnings, but her mind was anything but ordinary. Her reputation as a brilliant engineer and physicist was known worldwide, and now she was tasked with leading humanity's greatest hope, developing a secret weapon that could take on the Galactic Empire. Dr. Vargas and her team of experts have been working on this weapon for months, driven by the same question that haunted every human: how could Earth possibly stand against an empire so powerful? They didn't have time to wait for answers to come from conventional sources. It was time to create their own. Dr. Vargas stood before a massive metallic door in the heart of the research facility. It was sealed shut by a complex mechanism that only she knew how to unlock. The team had done the impossible. They had found something within Earth's own resources, something far more powerful than anyone had anticipated. "The key to victory is right behind this door," Dr. Vargas said, her voice full of determination. She typed in the final sequence into the control panel. The door hummed, the locking mechanism whirred, and finally, the door slid open. Inside was a massive chamber, filled with high-tech equipment, glowing with an eerie blue light. At the center of it all was a strange, alien-looking artifact. It wasn't from the Galactic Empire, but rather something discovered deep beneath the surface of Earth, in an ancient ruin that had been uncovered during a geological survey. Dr. Vargas had immediately recognized it as more than just an ancient artifact. She believed it was a weapon, one created by a long-forgotten civilization far older than any known to humankind. The artifact hummed with power as she approached, almost as if it recognized her presence. "What is it?" a young engineer asked, his voice full of awe. "I don't know yet," Dr. Vargas admitted, her eyes fixed on the object. "But I believe it's humanity's key to surviving this war." The artifact had baffled Earth's best minds. It didn't resemble any known technology, alien or otherwise. But one thing was clear: it held immense power. Dr. Vargas had theorized that it could tap into Earth's energy resources in ways unimaginable. But could they harness it in time? As the days passed, the scientists continued to study the artifact, but nothing prepared them for what happened next. The device began to pulse with energy, sending shockwaves throughout the lab. It felt as though the Earth itself was responding to it, aligning with it in a way that no one could explain. "Whatever this is," Dr. Vargas muttered to herself, "it's no accident." She realized that this was no mere relic. It was a weapon, hidden on Earth for a reason. This weapon, she was certain, could level the playing field. The challenge now was unlocking its full potential before the Galactic Empire could strike again. Meanwhile, in military command centers around the world, the urgency was reaching a fever pitch. The Galactic Empire had sent out another wave of reconnaissance ships, probing Earth's defenses. Humanity had only moments to prepare. The Galactic Empire might have underestimated humanity's resolve, but the time for a counterattack was quickly approaching. Back in the United States, President Nolan held a meeting with his top military leaders. They discussed the weapon Dr. Vargas and her team had discovered, though they still had little understanding of its capabilities. "Do we have a plan for its deployment?" the president asked, a stern look on his face. "We're still analyzing it," one of the generals replied. "It's unlike anything we've ever seen, but we are hopeful that it can provide us with a decisive advantage." The president nodded, though his mind was elsewhere. They couldn't afford to wait much longer. Every day that passed, the Galactic Empire grew stronger. "I want Dr. Vargas and her team to have whatever they need. This is humanity's best shot at survival," he ordered. Dr. Vargas' team worked day and night, unlocking more secrets of the artifact. But there was still one huge unknown. Could they weaponize it before the Empire launched their next attack? As they discovered more about the artifact, they realized it had the ability to manipulate energy fields in ways that defied science. It could potentially create a force field so powerful that even the Galactic Empire's most advanced weapons would be rendered useless. But it required immense energy to activate, far more than Earth's current power grid could supply. If they could only find a way to generate enough power. Time was running out. As humanity scrambled to understand the alien artifact, the Galactic Empire was already moving toward Earth. Its fleet, massive and menacing, was ready for another strike. If humanity couldn't activate the secret weapon in time, Earth would be lost. The countdown was on. Would the scientists and military leaders be able to harness the power of the mysterious artifact before the Empire's forces arrived? The first strike. The Galactic Empire's fleet had been spotted on the edge of Earth's solar system. Their ships, immense and armed with weapons beyond anything humanity had ever seen, had been waiting, biding their time. Earth's military forces had been preparing for this moment for months, but they knew it was unlikely they could defeat such a powerful enemy in open combat. Dr. Elena Vargas and her team, however, had made significant progress with the mysterious weapon they had discovered. It had taken all their efforts, but they had finally learned how to harness its energy. The artifact pulsed with raw, unexplainable power, unlike anything Earth had ever seen. It seemed to be in perfect harmony with the planet's energy fields. But despite all their advances, the device still required a massive energy source to reach full potential. Dr. Vargas was standing in front of the enormous control panel, her eyes scanning the holographic blueprints of the weapon. She knew they were close, but time was running out. The Empire's fleet was growing nearer with every passing hour. "How much longer, Elena?" General Hartley asked. His face was tight with concern as he observed her at the helm of the research facility. He knew they were putting everything into this last-ditch effort, but every moment counted. "Not long," Dr. Vargas replied, her voice calm, despite the mounting pressure. "We're ready to power it up, but we need to be certain it works. If we use this energy too soon, before we know its full power, it could backfire." "We don't have a choice," Hartley urged. "The fleet is too close. Earth needs this weapon now." The air in the command center grew thick with the weight of the moment. The battle for Earth's survival was about to begin. In space, the Galactic Empire's flagship, a colossal vessel known as the Dread Sovereign, drifted ominously toward Earth's orbit. The Empire's forces were massive, an entire fleet of ships, each one more powerful than anything Earth had ever seen. Their mission was clear: wipe out Earth's defenses, destroy all human life, and add Earth to the Empire's ever-expanding territory. The fleet's commander, Admiral Zorak, stood at the helm of the Dread Sovereign. His cold, calculating eyes scanned the view screen, which displayed the planet below. "Prepare for the final assault," he ordered. "Prepare to decimate this primitive world." He knew the humans would fight back, but he didn't believe they stood a chance. The Empire had crushed countless civilizations across the galaxy, and Earth was nothing more than a footnote in their vast empire. He was confident that Earth's military could not stand against the might of their fleet. But what Admiral Zorak didn't know was that Earth had one last secret, one that was about to change the course of history. Back on Earth, Dr. Vargas and her team had successfully activated the weapon. The artifact's energy output was overwhelming, more powerful than any weapon Earth had ever created. They had unlocked its potential, but now they needed to test it. A trial run would be risky, but there was no other option. "This is it," Dr. Vargas said as she stepped back from the control panel. "We're about to find out if this works." The massive chamber where the artifact was housed began to vibrate with energy, the entire room buzzing with a sense of raw power. The ground beneath their feet trembled, and the air grew heavy with anticipation. Outside the research facility, the first ships of the Empire were already beginning their descent to Earth. In the final moments, Earth's leaders were watching, their eyes glued to the screen. They had no backup plan, no other weapon of this magnitude. The future of the planet depended on the success of this one device. The artifact's energy continued to build, and with a loud roar, it shot out a beam of concentrated force into the sky. The beam shot upward, piercing the atmosphere. It was so intense that it illuminated the night sky, sending shockwaves across the planet. In space, the galactic fleet was still on course, unaware of what was coming. Admiral Zorak gave the order to fire, and the fleet's weapon systems powered up, preparing to unleash their deadly assault on Earth. But just as the first laser blasts began to streak toward the planet, something unexpected happened. The beam from the artifact collided with the Empire's attack, creating a massive explosion in space. The shockwave from the collision sent ripples through the very fabric of space, and for the first time, the Empire's fleet faltered. The ships in the front of the fleet shook as their energy shields were hit by the force of the blast. It wasn't enough to destroy the fleet, but it was a clear message to the Empire. Earth wasn't going down without a fight. "What just happened?" Admiral Zorak growled, staring at the view screen in disbelief. The fleet's advanced shields should have been impenetrable to any attack. Yet here they were, reeling from a strike that came from nowhere. He quickly ordered a change in tactics, but deep down, he was shaken. He had underestimated humanity. He had never considered the possibility that Earth could surprise them. Back on Earth, Dr. Vargas and her team stood in stunned silence. They had only tested the weapon once, and it had already proven to be more powerful than anything they had ever imagined. The victory, however, was short-lived. The Empire's fleet wasn't defeated. It was angry, furious, and they were coming with everything they had. "We've just made them angry," General Hartley said grimly, staring at the screen showing the fleet's movements. Dr. Vargas nodded. "We've shown them that humanity is not to be underestimated. But this is only the beginning. We have to be ready for their retaliation." The battle for Earth had begun, but humanity was no longer defenseless. They had a weapon, a powerful secret that could change everything. Hook. As the Galactic Empire's fleet prepares to strike, Earth's secret weapon is activated, and the first battle begins. Will humanity's surprise attack be enough to stop the Empire, or is the worst yet to come? The Empire strikes back. The shockwave from the first strike had sent ripples through space, but it wasn't enough to break the might of the Galactic Empire. Admiral Zorak, though initially shaken, quickly regained his composure. His fleet had taken a hit, but they weren't out of the fight. The humans had shown their hand, and now it was time to show them the true power of the Empire. On Earth, the initial sense of victory was short-lived. Dr. Elena Vargas stood in front of a large holographic map, watching as the Empire's fleet began to regroup. They were heading toward Earth again, faster this time. The initial shock had worked, but now they needed to prepare for a second, more powerful assault. "We can't afford to make the same mistake twice," Dr. Vargas said, her voice steady despite the tension in the room. "They'll be expecting us. We need to find a way to hit them before they hit us." General Hartley stood beside her, his expression grim. "We have the weapon, but it's not ready for another full charge yet. We need more time." "Time is something we don't have," Elena replied, her eyes narrowing as she studied the fleet's movement. "If they're coming for us again, we have to be ready. We need to hit them before they reach the planet." The Galactic Empire had not only suffered a setback, they had learned from it. The fleet's powerful ships were now equipped with new countermeasures, designed specifically to deal with the energy weapon that had caught them off guard. Zorak had ensured that his fleet would be ready for round 2. "Send out a warning to every planet in the Empire," Zorak commanded from his flagship. "Tell them that Earth is no longer a backwater world. It's a threat, and we will deal with it accordingly." He stood tall in his command chair, staring down at the swirling blue and green globe of Earth on the view screen. The humans had made a mistake. They had dared to challenge the might of the Galactic Empire. Now the punishment would come. He signaled to his fleet, "Prepare for the final strike. All ships, target Earth's defenses and destroy everything. Leave nothing behind." The countdown began. Back on Earth, the pressure was mounting. Dr. Vargas and General Hartley stood in the command center, watching as the final preparations for defense were made. Earth had never faced an enemy like the Galactic Empire. The weapon they had unleashed was their only hope, but it was still untested in a true battle scenario. "Ready the defense grids," Hartley ordered. "Prepare for the worst." The Earth's military had come together like never before, each nation setting aside differences to fight for the survival of the planet. But even with their combined efforts, they knew they were outmatched. The Empire's fleet had technology and firepower far beyond anything Earth had ever seen. "Do we have any hope?" General Hartley asked, his voice low. Dr. Vargas didn't hesitate. "We have hope, General. We have humanity." The weapon had been their last card to play. If it didn't work, humanity would be at the mercy of the Empire. But Elena knew that humanity had always been at its strongest when pushed to the brink. Earth was no longer a vulnerable target. It was a fierce, fighting force, ready to face the full wrath of the Galactic Empire. As the countdown on Earth ticked closer to the moment of impact, Dr. Vargas activated a secondary defense system that her team had been working on in secret. It wasn't as powerful as the energy weapon, but it was still a surprise to the Empire. It had the potential to disrupt the Empire's attack by throwing off the targeting systems of their weapons. "We're ready," Dr. Vargas said, her voice firm. "Let's give them everything we've got." Outside the atmosphere, The galactic fleet grew larger as the ships began to approach the planet. Their weapons powered up, preparing to rain destruction on Earth. The sheer size of the fleet was overwhelming, but the humans had no choice but to stand their ground. In space, Admiral Zorek's fleet readied for the final assault. He ordered his ships to form a perfect battle line, preparing to unleash the full force of their weapons on Earth's defenses. "Fire when ready," Zorek commanded. But just as the first round of weapons were about to be launched, Earth's defense systems came online. A massive pulse of energy shot up from Earth's surface, aimed directly at the fleet. It wasn't as powerful as the artifact, but it was enough to cause major disruptions to the Empire's targeting systems. The blast sent shockwaves through the fleet, throwing off their aim and forcing them to scramble. The Empire's weapons fired wildly into space, missing their targets. The disruption was enough to give humanity a precious few moments of respite. "This is it," General Hartley shouted as the first wave of Empire ships began to regroup. On Earth, Dr. Vargas monitored the situation, watching the Empire's fleet trying to adjust to the sudden interference. They had the Empire off balance, but the fight was far from over. The real challenge was still ahead. As the first salvo of enemy fire fell short, Earth's forces launched their counterattack. With every weapon at their disposal, humanity responded with a barrage of firepower, hoping that this would be enough to slow the Empire down. The stage was set for an all-out battle, one that would determine the fate of Earth and the future of humanity. The final stand. As the countdown for the Galactic Empire's full assault continued, the tension on Earth was palpable. Dr. Elena Vargas and General Hartley stood at the command center, eyes fixed on the holographic display of the fleet advancing toward them. The Empire was coming, full force, and this time, they wouldn't be caught off guard. Humanity's defense systems were in place, but would they hold? Or was Earth truly facing its final moments? "I don't need to remind you all what's at stake," General Hartley spoke to the gathered commanders and military leaders. "This is our last chance. If we fail, everything we've worked for is gone. The entire human race could be wiped out in a matter of days." Dr. Vargas, standing beside him, couldn't help but feel the weight of those words. Despite all the advanced technology they had developed and the desperation they had felt when the Empire first arrived, this was the moment. The battle wasn't just about Earth's survival. It was about proving that humanity would never back down, no matter the odds. "All stations, report in," Hartley commanded. One by one, the various military units around the world signaled that their defensive systems were operational. The energy weapon, the one that had already proven its devastating effects, was primed and ready. But Dr. Vargas wasn't sure it would be enough. The Empire had brought more advanced technology, more firepower. This time, Earth might not have the element of surprise. The countdown on Earth's primary defense system showed only minutes left. The ships in space loomed closer, their massive weapons charging with deadly energy. Suddenly, an alarm blared throughout the command center. "Admiral Zorek has engaged," shouted a tech officer. "He's already firing. Their fleet is coming in hot." The first round of laser blasts tore through space, targeting Earth's defense grids. The massive beams slammed into the atmosphere, causing earthquakes and explosions across the globe. The planet shook under the weight of the assault. Cities were flattened in seconds. But still, Earth's defenses held steady. "Brace yourselves," Dr. Vargas cried, gripping the edge of a console. The massive pulse cannon, Earth's secret weapon, fired once more, this time with an intensity that shook the foundations of the Empire's fleet. But despite the initial successes, it wasn't enough to stop the Empire's larger ships from continuing their approach. The Empire's fleet was not just vast, it was relentless. The ships didn't stop. They kept coming, inching closer to Earth's orbit. The Empire was determined to make humanity pay for its insolence. This wasn't just an invasion, it was a punishment. "The weapon's power is dropping," a technician yelled. "It's overheating." "What do you mean, overheating?" General Hartley barked. "We can't fire it again until it cools down. We need another solution." Dr. Vargas turned sharply, her mind racing. "We don't have time for another solution. We need to take out their flagship, Zorek's ship. If we do that, we can force the rest of the fleet to retreat. We've got to end this now." "We don't have the firepower for that," one of the officers protested. "Its ship is too well protected. We'll have to make our own opening," Dr. Vargas said, determination flooding her voice. "The Empire might have the most powerful ships, but they've made one mistake. They underestimated humanity. We may not have their technology, but we have something they don't: our will to survive." As the battle raged on, it was clear that the Empire was pushing Earth's defenses to their breaking point. But humanity had a plan, one that was risky and dangerous. It was the only thing they could do to give themselves a fighting chance. General Hartley's voice cut through the chaos. "We've got one chance at this. We'll target their flagship's engine core. If we can disable it, the rest of the fleet will be forced to retreat." "How are we going to do that?" Dr. Vargas asked, her eyes scanning the tactical map. "We'll use the last of the energy pulse system," Hartley said. "But this time, we won't be targeting the fleet. We'll direct it to their command ship." The plan was dangerous. It would take all of Earth's remaining firepower and the last of the energy from their defense system. If they failed, there would be no Earth left to fight for. The command went out across the globe. As the last remaining ships of Earth's fleet took position, Earth's primary weapon charged for the final strike. It was a do-or-die moment. In space, Admiral Zorek's fleet hovered ominously above Earth, unaware of the desperate counterattack being prepared. The Empire's ships loomed, large and imposing, like vultures waiting to pick apart their prey. "This is it," General Hartley said, his voice steady. "Fire when ready." The final energy pulse shot out into space, tearing through the vacuum at incredible speed. It struck the flagship, sending a massive shockwave through the Empire's fleet. The ship faltered, its massive engines faltering as the core was disabled. Zorek's flagship was now a floating hulk, slowly drifting out of formation. "We did it," one of the officers shouted. But the fight wasn't over. The Empire's fleet, without their leader, was thrown into disarray. But they weren't ready to give up. The final battle for Earth had begun, the unthinkable victory. The battle had raged on for what felt like an eternity. Earth's last line of defense was battered and broken, but they had one final chance. The Empire's fleet was now in disarray, their flagship disabled, but the war was far from over. Earth's military was exhausted, and the remaining forces knew that if the Empire's reinforcements arrived, the planet would fall. General Hartley's voice boomed through the command center, rallying the final forces to prepare for the unimaginable. "Listen up, everyone," Hartley said, his voice steady but filled with urgency. "This is the last fight. We either win here or we lose everything. The Empire might be down, but they're not out. We need to finish this. Now." Dr. Elena Vargas, her mind still racing from the chaos of the past few hours, stood beside him. "General, we need to act quickly. The Empire's reinforcements are only a few hours away. If we don't take them out now, there won't be a chance left." With the flagship disabled and the rest of the fleet confused, Earth's last offensive was prepared. The final energy pulse cannon, the one that had been Earth's secret weapon, had one last charge. But it wouldn't be enough to destroy the entire fleet. "We need to get to their command center," Dr. Vargas suggested, her voice filled with resolve. "If we can hit them at their core, the rest of the fleet will scatter. We've seen it happen before." General Hartley nodded, understanding the gravity of her words. "We've got no other options. We'll go in with everything we have left." Humanity's finest forces, those who had survived the first wave of the Empire's attacks, prepared for the most dangerous mission of their lives. They had the element of surprise on their side. The Empire hadn't expected this final stand. They had underestimated humanity's will to survive. And now they would feel the full force of that determination. The final assault began with Earth's last remaining ships launching at full speed toward the heart of the Empire's fleet. The ships were not large, but they were fast, and they were carrying humanity's best pilots, soldiers, and engineers, men and women who would do anything to save their planet. Dr. Vargas was among them, her mind laser-focused on the task at hand. She had worked for years on Earth's defense systems, and now she was about to lead the final push to ensure humanity's survival. "We're in position," one of the pilots radioed. "Target the Empire's command center," Hartley ordered. "Give them everything we've got." The remaining pulse weapons fired with a deafening roar, cutting through space like blades of light. The Empire's forces scrambled to respond, but their confusion was their downfall. The command ship, now vulnerable without Zorek's leadership, took a direct hit. The shockwave rippled across the fleet, disabling several more ships in its wake. Dr. Vargas watched as the Empire's fleet began to falter. But there was one ship, the one that had once seemed invincible, still standing. Zorek's personal flagship, though disabled, was still armed, and it was headed straight for Earth. "We've got to stop that ship," Dr. Vargas shouted. "It's the last piece of the puzzle. If it reaches Earth, we're done for." The command center's team scrambled to find a way to disable Zorek's ship for good. They had one last missile, one last chance. "Target locked," the missile officer called. "Launching." The missile shot through space like a streak of light, its payload deadly and precise. It slammed into the hull of Zorek's ship, causing a massive explosion. The shockwave was so powerful that it rippled across the galaxy, and the remaining Empire forces saw the fall of their flagship as the beginning of their end. The fleet began to retreat, scattering in every direction. Earth's final victory had come at a tremendous cost, but it had succeeded. The Galactic Empire had underestimated humanity's resolve. The planet was still standing, and Earth had sent a message across the stars: never underestimate us. As the last of the Empire's forces disappeared into the void of space, Earth's victory was celebrated, but the cost was high. General Hartley stood alongside Dr. Vargas, both watching the aftermath of the war. The battle had been won, but the scars left behind were deep. Earth had fought against impossible odds, but in the end, it was humanity's greatest strength, its will to survive, that had led them to victory. "Humanity has proven that we're more than just a small, insignificant planet," Dr. Vargas said, her voice quiet but filled with pride. "We're a force to be reckoned with." Hartley nodded, staring at the stars. "And if the Empire ever returns, they'll remember this day. They'll remember the humans who fought for their home, and they'll never forget the price of underestimating Earth."